Hi, some of you may know that I work at Fruitlands, and every once in a while, people ask me funny questions. The other day, someone asked me, "Does anyone ever ask you funny questions?" And something that goes along with this was somebody said, why did she put museums here? Why did she build her house here? So, Clara built her summer home out here, and that's where the museums came from. He says she wouldn't have any friends out here because all the rich people live in the Berkshires or in Boston. And what's the point of being out here? And maybe he's got a point, but I said, well, just down the road in Lancaster, actually just 5 miles from here, how many mansions do we have? How many estates? All built by the same family, yeah, but we have different families now, yeah. So there was a reason for her to do this. A lot of people came out here for a vacation. So the next thing to think about is, why do people come here? Well, as I read the history of Lancaster, they came because we had beautiful trees. And that's what got me started looking at what were they? How many do we really have? And I couldn't believe it when I found a book on historical trees in Massachusetts. Full text, online, very exciting. So I found a few that are outside of Lancaster as well. But we're going to go into the ones in Lancaster first. So this is called the Queen Elm. Some people call it the Great Elm. This picture here, let's see if I can do it. There we go. There he is. You see one person, but how many people could you fit around that trunk? And on some of them, I was able to get 23 feet, the circumference around the trunk of that tree. And that wasn't the only one that was like that. So this tree was at Five Corners. So on Center Bridge Road, just before you get to Cumberland Farms, be on your left if you're heading toward Cumberland Farms. That's where the tree was, and you'll find a historic sign that tells you about it. And I mean, it was huge. I can just imagine, though, people having picnics there, and because it was a nice open field. There are other pictures that show more of the field, but I had to pick one for each tree. So that's the Great Queen Elm. This one here, does everybody know the story of Mary Rowlandson? Do we have anybody here who doesn't? Because I don't want to make an assumption. You don't, okay. So in 1675, there was a war here. It was King Philip's War. And the Native Americans were very much in touch with the town, and they knew who the key people were in town. Rowlandson was the minister. He was married to a woman from the wealthiest family. So they had their eye on that family. And actually, the Reverend had gone to Boston with his son. And so he wasn't there when they attacked. They burned all the houses except one. And they took Mary. And she had one child in her arms. She and the child had been wounded. The child died shortly after she was captured, and then the other two children were captured separately, and she was able to be in touch with them a couple of times during her capture. But she was there for 3 months and wrote, when she came back, a journal, and it became a bestseller, the first bestseller in America. So that made the spot, which is on Main Street across from Middle Cemetery. There's a big field, and that's where her house was. So we'll get back to here now. So the garrison was burned in 1675, as I said, and there was another attack from Native Americans in 1704. And there were people captured that time and houses burned as well, but not as many. And if you come to my next talk, you'll hear more about that. So it was the Goss family that had built a house right where the Rowlandson garrison was. What happened was, instead of building another house there, they planted a pine tree, and that's the pine tree there. It was planted in 1853 to mark the spot where the garrison was, and they did it on the 200th anniversary of the town. In 1980, it was designated a historic tree of note. I got in touch with the Mass Arborist Association, and they don't know anything about it. Things have changed since then. In 2002, so those of you who have been here for a while, or anybody in the audience who actually could see the tree? No? So in 2002 was when it was blown down. And there is a marker there, but they don't really want people walking through that field. It's privately owned. The beam and oak, there's a little bit of confusion because there's also a beam and oak in West Boylston. West Boylston used to be part of Lancaster. However, this one here was on Route 117, Seven Bridge Road. And there it is there. And once again, huge trunk on that tree. And 19 feet circumference at 5 feet. 5 feet is the standard that they measure the trunk at, so about this height. In 1989, that fell over, and so there's probably even less people that remember it that are here today. I don't know the address. There's a lot of missing information in what I'm going to tell you, one of the reasons why I gave you some of the trees that I really don't know as much about. The original land grant was Beeman, but that goes way, way back to the 1600s. And so the house that was there in 1659 is not, because all the houses got burned. Yeah. Except one, and it escapes me now what the one was that survived. This is the common, so if you walk out in front and look at the common, there are a lot of trees there, but once you sort things out, things start to make sense. And Mrs. Thayer had 4 sons, and so she planted this tree, this one here, and another one that's closer to us. We couldn't get all 4 of them into one picture. Each one is for one of her sons. They're maple trees. In the center, this is the 4-H. Planted a Christmas tree they decorated every year. As a matter of fact, I only know that from somebody telling me. They said, well, the 4 trees are for her sons. So I don't even know. Well, I can tell from the tree trunks that they're not terribly old, so it may even have been the 3rd Mrs. Thayer. Yeah, like I said, the information was spotty. There's the tree by itself. And I did check with the 4-H, and they don't have any records. Same with the Girl Scouts. We'll get to them in a minute. I gave a talk a couple years ago on the Shakers that lived in Lancaster. And I did show this newspaper article here. And this is an apple tree that produced 90 bushels of apples in 1 year. Yeah. Must have been huge. Yeah, and at the time, and now, here you go, somebody cut this out of the newspaper and didn't write the date on it. Okay. They stuck it in the History of Lancaster book. and that's how I found it. Yeah, but it does have the dimensions of it, so that's kind of cool. And I will be doing another talk on the Shirley Shaker Village, the part of it that's in Lancaster, because it'd be great to know more about the people in Lancaster joining, and we'll see that coming up. I wanted to mention one other thing. This is going over the line into Harvard, but Harvard was also part of Lancaster. There is a tree if you go over to the other side of Route 2, the second right-hand turn, South Shaker Road, and there is a tree down there that has a marker on it. It is the whipping tree, and that's where the Mother Ann, the founder of the Shaker religion, and her closest people were beaten and whipped and so forth. What they did was they walked her over the line from Lancaster into Harvard, and saying, "Oh, don't worry, we'll just make sure they get home. We won't do anything to them," because they made the other people stay out. Yeah, that was sad, but it happens. Yep. This is kind of cool. So the Swedenborgians, they wanted to build a chapel. They bought a piece of land. It had this beautiful big cherry tree on it. And rather than just cutting it down and forgetting about it, they used it inside. And you can see what they did with all the woodwork in the interior. And there are more pictures online of it. I picked one that had quite a bit of woodwork on it, and the arch and so forth, and there are more of those. But you can see Fuller sawed 156 feet of board from one log.
Where is this chapel at?
It's on Neck Road, and now it's owned by just a family. It's no longer a church, and when you go by it, there's a rock in front that mentions an association that was there as well.
Reading Association. Reading Association.
Oh, Reading Association, okay, yeah. Here are the Girl Scouts. So I tried to track down Girl Scout information, and they were so excited by the little bit I have here that but they didn't know anything more. If you go outside on the common and go toward the street, between this is Main Street, this is the Bullfinch Church, this is an elm tree. And I didn't know until I started doing this that there were different kinds of elms. This is the kind where at the bottom you'll see leaves, stems with leaves on them just growing out of the base of the trunk. And that's a particular type. Not all elm trees have that. But that was this one here. And the troop's name was Red Rose, and it was 1932, so that's quite a while ago. I tried to find the tree in the play park, couldn't find it. There's supposed to be a sign with it, and I couldn't find it there, so. See, I'm giving you all a lot of homework to do, and if you find anything, send it to the Historical Commission. There was also a maple tree, and that would have been behind the church. Oh no, this is the maple tree that was on the green. There's another one that should have been behind the church. So there are a lot of maple trees on the green, and I didn't want to pick one because there are the four, but there's more than one of others, and it's one of those, but I don't know which one. Down here, I wanted to mention Gladys Kilbourne. She did a lot of volunteer work in the town, and her family stands out as being people who really did a lot of things for Lancaster. And there should be a plaque for her somewhere around the green. And what it says, the north side of the church. And I don't, George Washington bicentennial, I'm not sure. Would that be celebrating his birthday, his
Yes.
200th birthday? So it would have been 1813, 19. Yeah, yeah. Okay. This is my favorite one. So a group of middle schoolers, they were called the Burbank Scholars. They thought it'd be nice to have a garden that had Luther Burbank's plants. And how cool is that, that when they decided to do it, the Stark brothers heard about it and donated Burbank trees, 4 of them. So Alberta, which is what this is, Red Ace Plum, and Van Derman Queen, so 3 trees. I went over there, I looked around, and the nearest I can figure is if you go all the way back to the property through the football fields and all, there's a chain link fence, and it's got some fruit trees in it. So it may be in there, but it looks like that's fenced off because it's wetlands, so I'm not really sure. I talked to the assistant administrator, I think it was. She happened to be there at the time. This is before school started. She didn't know anything about it. But it was important enough that in 2002, Jane Swift proclaimed, she came out for Luther Burbank Day and proclaimed March 7th to be Luther Burbank Day. That's Arbor Day anyway. And I don't know if Arbor Day was named after that or not. I think Arbor Day was around before then, because this is 2002. Yes. But those are beautiful peaches, and what a great idea for kids to do. They should bring it back. Now, these are the ones that I really couldn't find a lot on. Some of them I found pictures for, but I couldn't use them. You know, some of them require permission, but some of them you just can't use. So we have the wilder tree on the Old Common, so that would be Old Common Road. Yeah, that measured 11 feet, but it would be that would be a tough one to find too, because it's been all landscaped. It was landscaped for the school. There's a walnut tree located at the home of John Elliott Thayer, where he lived as a child. Don't know where that is. Okay, so some of these are just mentioned as you read the history of Lancaster. And so I pulled them out. I figured if you hear about them, and these are on your handout, if you know more about it, you can let me know. We can accumulate more. The Harrington elms were kind of interesting. Reverend Harrington, who was the minister during the American Revolution, he lived in the homestead, which is the big yellow house on Main Street. And it's got a half-circle driveway. We drove through the driveway. None of the trees are old enough to be there at this time.
You're talking about the Thayer Mansion?
Yep. Yeah, the one that used to be the music school.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The yellow one, yeah. Yeah. So when Nathaniel Thayer came by, and Harrington was still living there, so that would have been around 1800. His wife went over there and took a seedling from near one of the trees and planted it at the Carlton House. And the Carlton House is right over here behind the old town hall. And no, I couldn't see any elm tree in their backyard. But it's a nice story, and and so they lived there temporarily until Reverend Harrington. He was quite old at the time, so until he passed away. The next one is on top of Ponacan Hill, a place that none of us can go to without making some kind of special arrangements, because that's on the south coast of Devons. And that's called the Farwell Oak. We've got the white oak located at the old Barnes place. Don't know where it is. There is an elm grove. I found a picture of it, didn't find anything more. The Powers Ash, found a picture of it. I believe the Powers Ash is in front of a house, but I couldn't find it. The cherry tree, I'm thinking that could have been the same one as the Swedenborgian house, because church, because Central Station, I think might have been near there, but I don't know for sure. The trees on Goss Lane were a gift of Bill Kilbourne, same family as the woman I mentioned earlier. I'm not sure exactly where they'd be. Once again, I found a picture, couldn't use it. Walnut Swamp, long tract of land extending through the intervale on the west side of the river. So that would be where the Rowlandson house was. That field I mentioned earlier I think is what they mean when they refer to the intervale. It says opposite the town hall, but so behind the houses here. Cunningham maple and the feathered elm, once again, pictures of them, couldn't use them. They were not good pictures anyway. Interesting to see that there's a type of elm called the feathered elm, and the leaves are kind of willowy. And then we have the Carter oak. Now, the Carter oak, yep, I know someone who lives on Langdon Road. She's on the commission. She looked into it, doesn't know where it is. Okay, now I actually have another page of them as well. So located on Boston Road between the home of Dr. Atherton and the last bridge on the south branch of the Nashaway. So the south branch of the Nashaway is the Nashua River that used to come up through the reservoir, but the reservoir is there now, and it still extends. It comes up to Center Bridge, where it meets the North Nashua. Okay. 26 feet at the base. Another on the Old Common near the burying ground. So that would be on the far side from here of the Decamp property. That's where the burial. So it's near the old burial ground. I'm trying to. Oh no, yeah, that's the one that's over here. I always get that mixed up. Yeah. So the old burial ground is behind the middle cemetery, and the old common. It was next to the old common. We had the common in 3 different places. There was one down the street down Main Street, as well as on Old Common Road. So, yeah.
So you're saying that one there is in the settlers' burial ground, the old settlers' ground?
Yes, it says it was near there. No other trees there.
Across the railroad tracks from the middle cemetery.
Yeah, if you're walking toward the railroad tracks, it's off to the left. So behind and beside is where the burial ground is. And there's going to be a talk on that coming up. You have a flyer about it. So we can take a look at that more carefully. Another southeast from Center Bridge near what was formerly called Neck Bridge. And that one is 26 feet at the root. So elms arched a path towering over the intervale of Frederick John. Well, I don't know where Frederick John lived either. But I tried to collect all the information. A fourth tree, southwest of the entrance to Center Road, and some 50 rods south of the church, 24 feet at the roots. This tree was taken up and transplanted by Abijah Willard. Okay, Abijah Willard was the right age to fight in the American Revolution. And then the last one is a sycamore a little to the southwest of Center Bridge, and it measured 25 feet. The height must have been 100 feet. It's a tall tree. So that is it for Lancaster trees. And I wanted to show you how important the town has thought our trees are. There is a shade tree law. We created a position for tree warden. We still have a tree warden today because you can't do anything to the trees without the tree warden's permission. No one may plant or prune a public tree without permission.
What's a public tree?
A tree on public land.
So a tree that's along
on
any
the
road in town would
Yes.
be on public.
If it's in your yard, you're probably okay, but if it's along the sidewalk, those big ones.
Okay.
There is a difference too. Main Street is Route 70. Down here further, state numbered roads, here it is. Care control is the responsibility of the Mass Highway Department. So they fall into a different category. Any road that is not a state highway, we can designate as a scenic road and protect the trees on that road. There has to be no one may remove a public tree without a duly advertised and posted public hearing. And no public trees can be trimmed, cut, removed without prior written consent of the planning board. There is an exception, and that is if there's immediate danger. So that's on the handout as well, so everybody can know what the rules are. Now I've got a few more slides. So this was one of the trees that I got most excited about. And we drove to Danvers because I just couldn't believe it. This tree was planted in 1632 by Governor Endicott. It's a pear tree. It still has pears on it. As a matter of fact, those yellow things there, those are all pears. This is to keep anybody away from eating the pears. This is an owl. Well, this fence is quite tall. It was taller than me. We had to take the picture looking down on it. We were standing in a parking lot and looking down on it. They have arborists taking care of it now because it didn't look too good.
Yeah, there's a medical facility there, and the medical facility parking lot was going to take that over, and they preserved it and protected it with a fence.
Oh, I thought the Historical Society was
They could be involved, but the actual
Yeah.
land itself, where all the parking
Yeah.
lots are, is whatever the medical facility is.
If you go in the medical building, they have a whole display about it. Yeah, it was fun to see.
What town is it in?
Danvers?
Danvers.
Yep, and it's we believe it's the oldest fruit tree in North America. Yeah.
It's hard to find. We couldn't find it. We had to ask the security guard in the medical place, where is it? And he pointed one of his long-range cameras at it. It's way over there. You'll see a little sign. So that is down 50. There's a gully 15 feet down that leads to that.
You have to really get to the edge of the parking
can't
lot
see it
to
from
be
the
able to
parking
see
lot.
it. There is another tree that I thought was kind of special. I'll talk about that one since we're talking about fun trees. And that's the Marlborough elm, which is historic because there was a Tory minister who lived there, and somebody stood outside and fired through the windows of the house trying to hit him because he was a Tory. But the interesting thing about the tree is in the fork of the branches, enough debris collected that a currant bush seated itself there, and at the time it had been bearing fruit for 60 years at the time the book was written. That's pretty cool, yeah. And that's in Marlborough, so that's not far from here. So the Liberty Tree, that could be a whole separate talk. If you go to Wikipedia, it goes on forever. They talk about everything that happened under that tree, because that's where the planning for the revolution happened, and the British burned it down. Okay, let's see. This is the pear tree. The Eliot oak. So John Eliot, he actually spent time in Lancaster, and he was involved in Mary Rowlandson's book, and along with James the printer, who was born in one of John Eliot's Christian Native American villages. And he befriended Mary Rowlandson while she was captured. So in South Natick, the Native Americans approached him. They had been worshiping under a particular tree for the longest time, and that's the Eliot oak. But they approached him with 2 more trees and wanted to plant them for him as friendship trees. As time went by, one of those trees fell, and by that time there were a new generation of Native Americans who wanted to plant 2 more friendship trees for him. So that's kind of a nice story too. And that's all in South Natick. And they have more trees too. They have a lot of trees. They're like, oh, so these kind of go together. Rutland considers themselves, it's not me blocking, it's this. Are you okay? Okay, so Rutland thinks it's the geographic center of the state of Massachusetts. You can probably figure it different ways. I understand that Paxton thinks they're wrong. But I didn't put that on here, so because my cousin lives in Rutland. And I asked her about it, and she said, no, there's no dispute. We're the geographic center. So that tree, it came down, and they planted a new one because they want to maintain the status there. Another connection with Reverend Harrington. The Harrington elm was planted by the father of Jonathan Harrington, who was the youngest person at the Battle of Lexington, and he was the fifer. And after it was planted, the Jonathan the fifer took care of it, and he actually lived into the 1850s, so almost to the Civil War. He died at 96 years old. Yeah. Also in Lexington is the elm at Monroe Tavern, And at the time the book was written, you could actually still see one of the spikes in the elm. And the spikes were there for the soldiers that fought the Battle of Lexington to put their horses while they were fighting. And I couldn't do this without mentioning, of course, the orchard house. That's the home of Louisa May Alcott, and there are 2 trees in front of it that the Alcotts loved their trees. All the Transcendentalists loved their trees. And the only one I haven't talked about here is...
That's at the Fruitlands, right?
No, actually, the Alcotts lived in 19 homes in 19 years. They lived at Fruitlands for 7 months. Yep. So the orchard house was the last house they lived in, and Louisa spent her life saving money so that her mother could live in a home that was her very own. They were very poor. And the next one I've got here is the Lafayette Elm in Ware. Lafayette rested there on his way to meet with Washington. And I think the next one is, you probably could have guessed this. These are all the trees I could find that Washington sat under or whatever. I don't know that I need to go through them all. In particular, this one here, the Holliston elms. What's interesting about those is Levi Lincoln was the governor. And I don't remember the dates for it, but it was before cars, because when he went to work in Boston or when he came home, he made the driver stop at the Holliston elms every time so he could get out and commune with his elms for a while. And apparently Washington liked them as well. Another one worth mentioning is the ancient oaks in front of Longfellow's Wayside Inn. If you're going in the direction of Boston, you go past the front door of the Wayside Inn. They're on either side, and one is red and one is white. One of them is has extra things propping it up because the inside of it is gone. Were there others that I think that covers the ones that have interesting stories. Yeah, and you can see here's some more in Natick. This is also on your handout, and the history of the town of Lancaster. It was written by Marvin. It was quite heavily edited, and the edited version is full text online, so you can read the handwritten pieces as well as the printed. And you can search on it. So I could go through and search for trees, for instance, and be able to do it. But it's 4 volumes long. We do have the original of it in special collections. The Historic Trees of Massachusetts is the book I've been referring to, and it's full text online. There's a paper copy in the back if you want to look at it, and I left tags, bookmarks in it. The ones that go straight up are the trees with stories. The ones at an angle are Washington trees. Changes in the Land is the book that's being read by the History Book Club now. It's a great book. It follows through the connection to the land that Native Americans have and how they took care of it, and then the colonists coming in and trying to make it England, and the changes they made and the effect that it had on both communities. Really quite interesting. Reading the Forested Landscape is another great book if you're interested in historic trees, because it shows woodcuts, and there's a copy of that in the back as well. It shows woodcuts And then it explains, if you see something like this is what it means. This is what was going on so many years ago. So you can actually pick out generations by what you learn in that book. And that was written specifically about landscape like ours. He lives just within 2 hours north of here in Putney, Vermont. If you like that book, you'll love the Fisher Museum. Dioramas as the forest changes, and it explains the changes down below. Great museum, hiking trails there. It's owned by Harvard, and you can see experiments that the Harvard students are doing when you go through. And I always like to mention, I get a lot of pictures from Digital Commonwealth. I'm on the Historical Commission and the Historical Society, and I do get a lot of information from the files that we both have. Okay, well, thank you very much, and I hope to see you. This is the historic trees book. The other 2 books are in the back. There were 2 sign-ups. One is Special Collections newsletter. The other is if you want to make a comment or if you want me to email you information on something. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.